Hey, hello and welcome. Congratulations, Tack, on getting first. Hello, and JP is also here. Welcome in. And here I am also here. Yay! Cleaning my glasses, because why would I do that before? Now I can't see what it says. Nuh-uh, I'm not here. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. The frog is here. Not JP. The frog. I'll take it. Hell yeah. Hello, someone. Welcome to you as well. I'm just cleaning up my glasses so that I can see nice in this bright light of text. Yesterday I recorded an Akali League of Legends lore video. It was extremely awkward because in this story Akali is 9 years old and does war cries, and I had to do that. It was not easy. I did some type of scream and then I laughed and then I did it again and then I laughed and then it just repeated and I was like, I can't do this. And then after some time I was like, fuck it, it will be one of these because I'm not going to continue doing this. So, oh, it's not out yet. It's the one for next week. It's a long one. The whole recording session without like with some breaks and wrong sayings took 1.5 hours. So I'm like it's a long one. It will be out on Wednesday, but there are 2 other Akali videos. But yeah, I was reading it, and then when I saw in the text, I was like, hell no. Hello, Final Smile. So yeah, that's gonna be fun, but I was like, you know, because like yeah, it's awkward for me to sit here and do some type of 9-year-old war cry in my apartment that echoes, as you can hear all the time. But I'm like, I've said some fucked up things. This is whatever, you know? Who cares? I'm just reading it out. Of course, I'm gonna sound stupid. It is stupid. And I'm not 9. So. And I can't just sit there and, like I can't say it in a neutral tone. Then I can just skip it and then the whole thing is ruined. So, yeah. Look forward to that next Wednesday. Oh, and I had to do it twice. I had to do it twice. Right, because there was one at the start. And then I'm like, okay, that was okay, I guess, you know? But then she does it again, and then I was like, I have no idea what to do here. Like, I don't know what to do about this. It's just gonna be funny. But it's not the most serious of stories. I mean, it's about kids, so. Kids playing, but it's serious as well. And sad, actually. Very sad. But also fun. Anyway, enough about League of Legends. Video that isn't out yet. Today we're going to continue reading. And then I might do some coloring. I got the idea in my head today. I was like, I don't know if I ever did. I feel like I might have once, but I don't remember. So now I'm gonna do it. Since I always do it, like I upload on Blue Sky really often. I mean, some take longer than others to make, and some just done in a day, and some take like a week, you know? And sometimes I do 2 a day or whatever. I just upload them whenever they're done. Since I just find some line art and get to coloring. So I'm planning on doing that. Did you stop posting them to Instagram? I did, because I was like, I want some type of structure. So they're not posted on Instagram anymore. And I also felt like I was spamming the Discord. So I'm like, maybe I should stop. But then I'm like, it's my Discord. So I don't know why I stopped. But I was like, no. So now I only post to Blue Sky. Mind you, there is some that have been... I mean, if you're under 18, I shouldn't say you should watch me anyway. But there are some that are a bit more suggestive. There are 2 posts that have been tagged as adult content, and I was like, what? Why did this one get tagged but this not? You know, that type of stuff. But I'm like, oh well. So I'm just saying anyway that some... I mean, it's not straight up porn. That's not what it is. But yeah. Anyway. Anyway, reading first, because that also takes a while. Gotta get Blue Sky then. Yeah, hell yeah. Rip. I don't know if you have to... Because I know that Twitter/X is mean. That like you can't scroll it without having a account. I don't know if Blue Sky is the same, because I never used it before. I think it's completely fine if you don't have an account. I don't know either. But then you can't like them. Hello, Tahira. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Just in time to start the little recap that we have today. My thought process exactly. Thank you. Okay, repositioning mic, repositioning myself. Okay, then, shall we? Boom, boom, boom. Last time on A Soldier's Life, Castile tells Eric to get closer to Constantine and spy on him for her. Eric finishes his slow aging spell form. The company starts to move towards the elf ghost city to find the dungeon. On their way, they get stalked by wolves, but what we know and they don't is that the wolf is actually Traeliorn watching them, and he wants revenge. He summons a strong weather elemental to make it harder for the company to find the dungeon, or hard to enter the city. But because of the weather, Castile decides to make for the city. So all I understand at the moment is that Traelion wants to kill them ASAP. That's all I get. Indeed. Bastard ass. So let's see if he does. Doubt. And we're starting out with some more AI pictures of Eric. Eric's back. Sick. There he is. In a library? Yeah. Oh, well. Chapter 131. The library. The heavy, wet snow crunched under our feet as the discordant rhythm of our steps headed towards the western gate of Kaelora. Adrian and Constantine were out front and cut down another spectre, while Castile took its death essence. The dark walls of the city soon shadowed above us, blocking some of the snowfall. Large stones were scattered at the foot of the... What is happening? Hello? Calm down, woman. You can read slower than that, and it's fine. Large stones were scattered at the foot of the wall, having fallen with time. Being close to this city felt wrong. An aged stone was covered in a black mold. The gate was glossy, ominous black wood as we reached it, with one of the large doors slightly ajar, giving a narrow entrance to the city. The company huddled by the wall as Constantine checked a narrow opening in the gate. I stood in front of Scholar Fabian, who was shivering and did not appear to be doing well. Maviet stood over the older man, trying to shield him from the wet, heavy snow. The more snow melted on my neck and soaked my clothes underneath, the more I felt the bite of the cold, especially now that we had stopped moving. A spectre of an elven woman in guard armor passed through the stone wall, surprising Pavel further back. Pavel screamed in pain as the arm of the spectre passed through his torso. The spectre flared, its body becoming more coherent for just an instant as it took something from Pavel's pained cry. I was the first to get my runic blade on the spectre. After 4 rapid strikes, the creature faded into the ground. Is Pavel okay? Castile used the urn to destroy the creature permanently while Linus checked on Pavel. I kneeled opposite Linus, concerned for Pavel. Pavel's face was pale, and he was struggling to breathe. He will recover as soon as more specters do not strike him, Linus told me. He addressed Pavel. Come on, Pavel. 1 strike from a spectre cannot take down a legionnaire. Pavel struggled to sit up, and his breathing was labored. My lungs feel like cold spikes are stabbing them, he rasped. Can I have a healing potion? Castile was standing over us, concern on her face. It will do you no good. It attacked your life essence, not your physical body. You will recover in a day. Just do not get struck again before then. If the specters drain your life essence, you will become one of them. Oh, okay. The wind suddenly seemed to shift, and our minor protection from the wall was gone. Snow was blowing directly into us and getting heavier. Constantine returned from the opening to report. He sounded grave. Dozens of specters are walking the street, Castile. If everyone had a runic weapon, we might stand a chance. Adrian shook his head. It is a death sentence if we stay out here. We will freeze and be exposed to whatever creature the summoner sends at us. I prefer to fight inside the city. We can shelter in one of the buildings and have those with weapons shield the others. Firth dissented. Easy for you to say. You have a runic weapon. Tension among the men was getting thick. It was the first time the company did not feel cohesive. For some of the men, they were fighting an enemy they could not injure. Constantine offered a solution. Give everyone one of the runic arrows. Those without a runic sword can hold off the specters long enough with the runic arrowhead for another with the sword to finish it. Silence hung and the flakes fell. Do it, Castile finally said. Things were so dire I pulled out one of my aces. I have this, Firth. I handed him the elven runic dagger I secretly brought from my storage. He seemed like the best person in the company to wield it. Someone prone to stab others in the back. Found it on the elven summoner's guard. Firth unsheathed the dagger in the light of the glowstone. He grunted. Pretty little poker. Thank you. He sounded mollified and returned the runic arrow Blaze had given him. I got a surprised look from Castile, but she did not say anything. I wonder what surprised her most. Probably that he had it and didn't tell anyone, I would assume. Or if it was also somewhat that he just took something from his storage. But maybe like others people won't think about it, or like he could have had it just on him anyway. So it's probably just that he had a runic weapon and she's like, what the fuck? Castile is always being surprised by him. That is true. That is very true. So yeah. I wanted back after this birth. I tried to make eye contact, but he just waved his hand in acknowledgement. I hoped he was not going to hold on to it. The snow was almost knee-deep now, and everyone was shivering but prepared as best we could be. Wait, it was Firth he gave it to. I just realized who he gave it to as well. Wow. I don't think you're getting that back. I mean, He kind of has to. Like, people saw it, you know, that it is Eric's, but Firth, damn. Delmar took the lead through the crack in the gate, and we followed in single file. We fanned out on the other side of the gate, and the ruined city lay before us. Skeletons of stone roofless buildings lined the streets. Some had collapsed walls. Spectres, as Constantine had noted, walked the streets. They moved effortlessly in the field of snow, leaving it undisturbed. Delmar was dealing with the nearest one, a young elf male. The spectres noticed our arrival and started moving towards us. Castile ordered, "Remain here at the gate until we thin them out. Let them come to us." I moved to the right to face the length of the inner wall. 2 spectres in guard uniforms walked through the wall of a nearby building, and I was soon fighting in the deep snow. As I engaged one, the twang of a bow behind me sent an arrow into another. "Blaze, hold your arrows," Delmar said angrily. Blaze's arrow passed through the spectre, causing a tiny flash and forcing it back briefly, but it recovered quickly. The arrow shattered on the stone beyond, the arrowhead and splinters disappearing into the snow. Maybe it stood behind me with the scholar, but there was not much they could do to help against incorporeal spectres. The company formed an arc at the gate, with the 5 runic blades protecting everyone. The only consolation was the slow speed of the spectres. They all appeared to walk toward us. Castile was busy utilizing the urn on disrupted spectres. If she did not pull their death essence into the urn, they reformed from the ground in about 30 minutes. Oh, 30 minutes. At least it's not seconds. We found that out when Castile missed one of the spectres Delmar had dissipated. It reformed under Delmar and struck his leg. Delmar cursed and backed away, and I had to strike the spectre down so Castile could use the urn. Delmar was limping and cursing as he handed his sword to Benito, who took his place. Castile was doing her best, but it took almost 15 heartbeats for the violet smoke to be consumed by the urn. The spectres seemed endless. The wind shifted again, and the snow was now falling straight down. The gate and wall had shielded us from the slow, drawn-out combat for hours. The spectres were easy enough to deal with one at a time. My shoulder and forearm were starting to fatigue, so I switched hands. My ambidexterity training coming in useful. I wish I had that. It sounds so nice. "Hello, Makiek." "Nothing. They've just entered the city and are fighting the specters. They were just like, okay, let's do it. Let's kill them." That's all that happened. And that Eric gave his runic dagger to Firth, which was surprising. But necessary, presumably. We're still in the first chapter. "Cursed elemental!" Castile screamed at the sky as the snow was getting deeper. "We need to get inside a building. Fabian?" Night had given way to a grey dawn filled with continued snowfall. Fabian was shivering and bundled tight. He looked up, his face blue. The library should be entirely stone and still have its roof. He looked left and right and then straight. It should be that way. Maybe 100 yards from the outer wall. His teeth were shattering. "Eric and Constantine, at the front!" Castile barked her orders. We were in the best condition of the men wielding the runic weapons. At least, we appeared the less fatigued. Adrian handed his own blade off to another man to get a rest, as did Brutus. I moved to the front and walked with Constantine. Not only did we have to fight the spectres, but we also had to break snow, which was thigh-deep now. We had definitely thinned the spectres in this part of the city, but it was a city, and if everyone in the city had become a spectre, that meant there could be thousands. Many tripping hazards were hidden in the snow, but we pressed forward in a sliding walk. We moved 1 block into the city, attracting a wave of 24 spectres. We were forced to retreat back to the gate as Constantine and I killed them one by one. I found the air shield did not deter the spectres, but Castile's shadow chains could hold them in place and prevent us from being overwhelmed. The problem was Castile needed to constantly utilize the Kettle of Souls, or the spectres would reconstitute themselves. We moved forward again once Castile had consumed the spectral essences. At the intersection of the street, Scholar Fabian shouted, There it is! That building there! A vague outline of a building through the dense snow could be seen in the grey morning light. The street had widened as we moved to the building and climbed the steps unmolested. The large front doors were missing, but Fabian had been correct. The building did have a stone roof. I took out my glowstone and entered with Constantine. A spectre greeted us, but we dispatched it quickly together. Even in the cold air, the pungent smell of mold hit me. The antechamber to the library was round and had mosaics on the wall, mostly covered in thick green and black mold. A second and third spectre greeted us from deeper inside the structure, as the others moved into the room. While we handled the spectres, men gratefully cleared their bodies of snow. Grab what you can to start a fire, Adrian said, taking back his sword. There was not much in the room besides some dried vines. And books, I would assume. Constantine had already looked further in. There are a lot of collapsed shelves and moldy books further in. Only noticed 3 spectres too. We will move deeper then, Castile decided. Our shivering company pushed into the next room. It was a massive, high-ceiling room with hundreds of shelves and books. Most of the shelves had been knocked over or just collapsed on themselves with time. The spectres, Constantine noted, were on the far side and seemed uninterested in us at the moment. As soon as we started hacking up the shelves for firewood, the 3 spectres moved toward us, along with 2 we had not seen. Castile used a kettle of souls after we destroyed them. The urn now sounded like it was half full of sand. Castile also looked beyond exhausted. It was only a short time before we had a fire going. Matteo was warming his hands, his fingertips white with frostbite. So I wonder, since he said that the urn sounded like it was half full of sand, then I would just assume that the kettle of souls has a limit to how many specters it can hold. Because then it doesn't sound like they just disappear, like become a part of the urn. Like there is a limit, but like how do you empty it? Like how do you do that? Maybe you have to destroy it with some necromancy shit or something. Yeah, I know, that's what I was thinking, because there are so many specters. But now he says it sounds like it's half full of sand. And I only feel like he says that because there has been a change in the sound, as in, it's getting pretty full now. But I'm like, how would you empty one? So, He was not the only one with early frostbite. Some men had swollen red fingers, pale white skin, or the extremities blackening like Matteo. I finally had time to sit and take off my boots, as my feet had been hurting for hours. Felix took my black blade while I rested. For now, there were no specters. My toes were an angry red, and some skin was peeling. I had been fighting non-stop for hours, which probably saved me from more severe frostbite. I focused my healing spell form on my feet, and the skin flaked off, giving rise to fresh, healthy pink skin. Linus came over and requested I gave him all the potions in my dimensional storage. When the skin turned black, it meant the skin was dead and needed to be treated with healing. Don't burn those! A shivering Fabian stood as Colm was about to toss some moldy books on the fire. Castile turned at the commotion. Burn the shelves first. If we run out of wood, burn the damaged books next. Fabian nodded in thanks. I could tell he wanted to explore the surviving tomes, but he was still in a miserable state. I was close enough to hear Adrian and Castile talking. I hope we have not just trapped ourselves inside the city. I was thinking about that as well. The Kettle of Souls is doing its work, Adrian. We just need not rush into the city and get overwhelmed, Castile said tiredly. She removed the leather gloves I had given her, and her fingers were completely black. Adrian yelled at her. Guards, Castile! Why didn't you say anything? He took her hands and tried to warm them. Linus! One of the lesser healing potions for Castile! Linus rushed over and gave it to her, and she drank it with Adrian's help as her fingers were not working. Her black skin slowly regained color. Ugh. Oh, frostbite sounds so scary. Just that how fast it just poofs, it's insane. We ended up having half of our stock of potions as we got a large fire going. Men removed their armor and laid out their wet clothes to dry. Spectres arrived sporadically, from both inside the complex and from outside. They were easily dealt with, and every time we slew one, Castile stood mechanically and used the kettle of souls on it. The snowfall was not slowing, and by midday it was almost 5 feet deep. At this height, traveling in the city was impossible. Not only would you have to break the snow, but you could not see the spectres until they were on top of you. Concern was growing, and Flavius said, "The summoner and the spectres are not going to be the death of us. He's going to bury us under 10 feet of snow, and we will starve to death." His pronouncement did not help the company's mood, but he was right. Most men had dropped most of their extra food at the tower to lighten their packs. Mavius cheerfully offered up his bag freely. "I have 27 ration bars left." "I would rather starve," Firth said, laughing at Mavius' offer. If things got dire, I was prepared to reveal my additional storage capacity, even though I had regretfully just given away most of my food stores to the herbalist sisters. Delmar tried to be optimistic. "If we can find the dungeon, there should be plenty of meat to harvest inside. I have never been in a dungeon that did not have something edible in it." "How are we going to search for it under 10 feet of snow?" Flavius said bitterly. "I think this city has a sewer system," Scholar Fabian interrupted the growing discontentment. All eyes turned to him as tempers cooled. Most of the great elf cities had expansive underground networks. I think one of the books Eric has detailed their maintenance. Unfortunately, there are no maps inside. The few of us who realized it turned and looked out at the sea of thousands of books. Most were probably useless, but there had to be a map of the city's underground network somewhere in the mess. Imagine if they burned it. Good job, Fabian, to tell them to stop. Chapter 132. Glimmer of Hope. We had been in the library for most of the day, with the snow not letting up outside. The night was settling in, and the stained windows of the library were darkening. They were not even real windows, just massive blocks of semi-transparent stone, probably quartz. Pretty. The fire was burning merrily in the center of the ancient elven library, constantly supplied by men breaking apart old shelves. Fortunately, everything was dry and burned well with minimal smoke. The spectres kept arriving, but much slower, one every half hour or so. Castile seemed puzzled and spoke aloud, her concerned voice echoing in the large room. Spectres should not be able to range so far from where they died. Constantine was inspecting the library's outer wall and answered her. "If you watch them, Castile, they are going about their daily lives until something interrupts their routine. If we had not attacked the first spirit of the girl picking flowers, the others might have left us alone. Well, the non-soldier spectres anyway." "Really?" Castile shook her head while flexing her recently healed frostbitten hands before the fire. "It just concerns me. If all the spectres can wander anywhere in the city, then we could be rushed by thousands at once at any time." Scholar Fabian was sitting by the fire, going through stacks of books Benito and Felix were bringing him as the shelves were dismantled. If he thought a book was trash, he put it to his left in the burn pile. If it was useful, he stacked it to his right. He added his input. Spectres should take a lot longer to reconstitute after being disrupted by runic weapons. My guess is the ley line underneath the city is feeding them somehow. It is probably a nexus, an intersection of ley lines. It also makes it much more probable there is a dungeon somewhere within the city walls. Another spectre entered through the wall, and Adrian moved to deal with it, and Constantine rushed to his aid. Castile rose with the urn to permanently end the threat. It was becoming a routine now, and everyone felt somewhat safe, except for the fact that the exit was completely blocked by snow. Castile returned to the fire. There is definitely a nexus under the city. My ether recovery has increased. I had not noticed or felt any difference myself. Constantine walked back to the fire. We should explore the rest of the library. This is just the main room. It was not the first time he had mentioned it in the last few hours. He was smart enough not to wander off on his own without permission. He also had not sheathed his runic weapon the entire time and was always moving to attack new spectres when they wandered in. His runic weapon was the only one that sparked when connecting with the spectres. It was like his weapon was taking pleasure in striking the undead. We will wait to see if Scholar Fabian finds anything useful first, Castile replied patiently. The same response she had every time Constantine mentioned exploring. Constantine looked around at the massive room, almost the size of a football pitch. Wow. There are tens of thousands of books, Castile. It could take him months to find anything. At least let me see if I can find any access down to the sewer system, so we have the option to move under the city if the summoners send something after us that we cannot handle, Constantine requested. At least it won't be full of elf shit, Matteo added, getting a laugh. But I shook my head as I knew what Constantine was going to say next. That Eric is gonna volunteer. And look, I already have a volunteer to help. Constantine's smirk had Matteo groaning. Matteo really needed to learn to hold his tongue. Oh well, not Eric. Delmar had collected everyone's food, inventoried it, and told Castile. Castile, we have 5 days of food here. 7 if we stretch it. More if we start rationing now. I agree with Constantine. The sooner we find another exit, the better off we are going to be. Castile relented. In the morning then. Ooh, Eric is gonna get so much shit. If something happens now, because now they're leaving, the last straw was the food situation. So if he says later, like, I actually have so much food, and it's like, bro, then we didn't have to go. So if something happens, it's on him. So if something happens, he really cannot say, like, oh, I have all this food. Of course, if they're dying, he will do it, but he will get in some shit. Like, if someone dies or some shit, like, then he's, yeah, kind of letting them die because he had food, so they didn't have to leave, blah, 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 so on. You can argue both ways. Close in the morning then. Let's make sure everyone has dry clothes and get some rest. Half the men walked around in their underclothes, waiting for the heavier fabric to dry near the fire. It was a terribly slow process. I thought he was gonna say it was a terrible, like, terrible view. As the lights from the quartz windows faded, I lay down on my bedroll. Most had dropped their bedrolls at the tower before we ran, so I counted myself lucky. I was mentally exhausted from the lack of sleep and fighting all day. Fighting the specters was like striking training dummies, and I had probably killed over 200 today. Oh wow, that many? What the fuck? If I had not had the self-healing spell form, I probably would not be able to lift my arm. Brutus could not even hold the sword I had lent him. His forearm and shoulder were too sore and cramping. Linus told him he could not afford to use a healing potion on him, as we were down to just 2 of the lesser healing potions. My bedroll was next to the scholar, who was sitting at a chair by the fire. He was exhausted as well, but too excited about paging through the viable tomes, humming and hawing as he went. Maviath was also nearby, and not in the mood to play checkers. Maviath! I closed my eyes but found sleeping difficult. I decided that, with danger around every corner, I would neither use the amulet nor an oblivion pill. My instincts and adrenaline were telling me not to sleep at all. I heard the other men tossing and turning nearby as well. Maviath shook me awake, the large Goliath standing over me. Eric, it is time for us to be on watch. I sat up and looked around. Somehow I had fallen asleep and did not even dream. I always dreamed when I slept, and I could usually recall most of what happened in them. Usually, they were nightmares. I thought we were guarding the scholar, I asked groggily. I will be fine. You will not be far away anyway, Scholar Fabian said from his nearby chair, dismissing me. He was intently focused on the book he was paging through, and did not even look up. I stood and looked around. Benito and Delmar were by the entrance, huddled in cloaks. Constantine and Firth had their backs to the fire, facing the open end of the library. Blaze and Dante were hanging by the eastern wall, giving us a total of 6 men on sentry duty. At the fire, Lurkin was heating a large cast iron cauldron. He looked at me and answered my unasked questions. Found it buried under one of the piles of books. Spent 2 hours cleaning it and boiled a few runs of water. He tapped aside. Looks like we were not the only ones to camp in the library. The smith's mark on it is Tellian. The 5-gallon cauldron was being used to melt snow and boil water. As I dressed in my armor, I asked Lurkin, "Did you dream last night?" He looked at me perplexed, but went into deep thought. "No, not that I can recall, but I usually do not remember my dreams. Why do you ask?" "Just curiosity. I usually dream, but nothing last night. Not even sure how long I slept," I said casually. Maviath answered me. 4 hours. The watches are 4 hours, according to Delmar, and we are on the second watch. We are to replace Benito and Delmar at the door. Lurkin offered his meal preparation efforts. "Have some weak tea, rice, and hard bread." I got my cup from my pack, and the hot tea was welcome for the warmth it spread inside me. The fire might be half a dozen feet across, but the temperature dropped rapidly once you were more than 10 feet away from it. The allotment was a lot smaller than I had expected. Just a cup of salted overcooked rice and a slice of stale bread. I still ate it greedily as my stomach was growling with impatience. The food was gone too soon, and I knew every meal would be similar while we were trapped here. Maybe it got a double portion, but it would not be enough to sustain him either. No one would complain about the Goliath getting more after all. He had freely supplied nearly a quarter of the remaining food. We walked to the entryway, and Benito jumped when I said, "Relief behind you." Benito turned and handed me my sheathed black blade. Delmar poked his head out of his own cloak, his breath forming dense clouds in the frigid air of the entrance. "Things have gotten quiet. Haven't seen a spectre in 2 hours, but stay alert." He handed Maviath his blade and went to get some rest. Sharing runic weapons was unusual, but it was necessary with only 5 blades in the company. Firth also had the elven dagger and had used it but had not passed it off to anyone. I planned to get it back when we were free of the elven ruins. Now he's mentioned it twice, so now it feels even more like he's not gonna get it back. Delmar and Benito gladly went to the fire to get warm, and we pulled our cloaks tight around us. A glowstone lit the chamber beyond. The archway we had entered was now completely blocked by snow, and it was almost 8 feet to the top. Maviath usually fought with a club, and Delmar's blade looked tiny in his hand, but he knew its importance against the specters. We did not talk for most of the watch, as I listened to the snowfall changing. Maviath heard it too. "It is getting much colder outside. The wet snow is changing to lighter snow, but will accumulate quicker." I just nodded as the cold was still penetrating my cloak, and I did not want to waste body heat talking. I focused on the clouds of my exhaled breaths to pass the time, seeing how far I could send them. Maybe it spoke after a time. "I have never seen this much snow before." "It is called a blizzard," I said, using the English word. Blizzard. Maybe it tested the word. Sounds ominous and fitting for this circumstance. "Still glad you came with us?" I asked lightheartedly. Maybe it gave the question serious thought. "Exploring the elven ruins is thrilling. Being chased by an angry and powerful elven summoner is not as exciting." His dry honesty made me huff in amusement. I reached down and picked up a book. The book crumbled in my hands. I guess these books closer to the entrance had more exposure to the weather, allowing mold to grow on them. Remus and Brutus came to relieve us. Brutus winced as I handed him the black blade. He was still sore from swinging his arms thousands of times yesterday. I had healed my own damaged muscle tissue with my spell form. "Castile wants to talk with you," he said, taking over the duty at the archway. The red-haired Remus took Delmar's blade from Maviath. We left them trying to keep the warmth inside their cloaks. I was not sure why we were guarding the entrance to the room. Castile sat on a bench, carefully paging through a large elven tome, and I sat beside her. Each page was a painting of a magnificent city with elves walking the streets. I waited while she finished and placed the book down between us. "Constantine is going to explore the rest of the library. He wants you and Matteo to go with him." She spoke softly so no one could hear us. I sighed in a long exhale of Inevitably. 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 You want me to leave the potions? You're not going with him. Just Matteo is, she said heavily. I wanted to ask you a question. How much food do you have in your dimensional space? You do not have to take it out, but I need to know. She had spoken softly, and no one was within 20 feet of us. This was it. How much was I going to reveal? I went through it on my mind when I had left. 3 gallons of honey, almost 20 gallons of rum, 30 gallons of water, 15 pounds of salt, 5 pounds of peppercorns, 15 ration bars, and 10 pounds of standard Legion rations. I also added 2 elven packs I had not yet to search. I slowly said, enough for one person for 3 to 4 weeks. Castile nodded, obviously disappointed I did not have an entire pantry. Things were going to get bad fast as the food ran out. With the snow, we had no way to get more food. She was quiet for a time and I sensed despair from her. I suggested a course of action. Delmar is right. The only way out is to find the dungeon. The summoner may have buried us under 10 feet of snow, but he cannot spy on us either. If anyone can find a dungeon that has been missing for 1500 years, it is Constantine. I also suggested. It is frigid by the entrance. Can I suggest we pull those sentries closer to the fire? Castile considered. Her tone changed to confident and authoritative. Constantine, you and Matteo can explore, but no more than 4 hours. Adrian, tighten the watch closer to the fire and bring the glowstones to Eric to charge them. Matteo was given a bow with 5 runic arrows, but no runic blade. Constantine and Matteo then left to explore the library, which I assumed was a large complex. I recharged the glowstones, marking out the perimeter of the camp. Then I joined everyone else, making firewood from the shelves and bringing books for Scholar Fabian to sort. Rice and jerky stew were served as our lunch, and if you discounted the broth, it was an even smaller ration than breakfast. Lurkin was rationing food as directed, and no one was complaining yet, but everyone was realizing what a terrible spot we were in. I do not think Castile made the wrong decision. If we had not entered the city, we would have frozen to death in the snow on the march. After just 2 hours, Constantine returned, running into the chamber with Matteo. We have 10 or more specters right behind us. Oh my god. The men moved quickly to form a wall, and the 4 men with the runic blades prepared for the charging specters. Over a dozen specters of children came through the walls in pursuit of Constantine and Matteo. What is it? Is there child graves here? Like, what happened? Firth barked at Constantine as he entered the fight. I knew you were terrible with kids. It did not get any laughs. It did. From me. Castile was ready with the kettle of souls, and the fight did not last long. Oh, that's good at least. My god. Oh no. Kill the children. Yeah, once again. Kill the kids. With the kids. Fight did not last long. Yeah. Constantine was breathing irregularly. Castile was waiting for him to report. Matteo informed us. He got struck twice. Oh! There may be 5 or 6 more specters, but they must reconstitute themselves. Reconstitute themselves. Since Constantine could not speak, Adrian asked Matteo, what did you find? Lots of smaller libraries and studies. A few isolated specters. When we finally found stairs going down, they were not to sewers. Oh, the stairs were not to the sewers? It was some type of large shelter complex. One of the rooms had hundreds of elven bones, mostly of children by the looks. Okay, so I was right. No, I don't want to be right. Only a few of the children chased us, but there were hundreds more. Matteo reported as his breathing steadied. He also had the look that indicated that he never wanted to work with Constantine again. A look I knew well. Scholar Fabian approached. We should be searching the smaller libraries. This was just a general library. Fascinating books, but the 1,000 books I have looked at so far had nothing useful. Constantine rasped. I think the underground complex extends under the entire city. The civilians took shelter there when the Legion attacked. The poison gas killed everyone above and below ground, Castile. There will be hundreds more specters, but I think we can travel under the city to search for the dungeon. Constantine's voice was exhausted. Constantine nodded his head at Matteo in appreciation of his efforts. Matteo grinned as he unsheathed a new thin blade on his hip. They had found another runic weapon. The hell, what are the odds? An elven forged blade. This got murmurs in the company. If we could find more, then everyone could defend themselves. I hope they do, and they are cool. Chapter 133. Forgotten Knowledge. After the scouts returned, the men huddled near the center of the massive library. Constantine and Matteo's news that there were thousands more specters under the city was not being met with much cheerfulness. Matteo's new runic elven blade was being passed around, but I ignored the interest. I shifted my position to listen to Constantine, Castile, Adrian, and Delmar talking. They were all circled around the scholar to plan an expedition further into the library. Through ragged, wheezing breaths, Constantine explained what they had found. The library has 2 large towers on the northern corner of this structure. We only explored one of the towers. Each floor of the tower had its own library. We only encountered a few specters, likely the elven librarians. They were easily handled and reformed after half an hour like the others. He nodded at the kettle of souls to indicate it would be required. Of course it would, what do you mean? The scholar eagerly interrupted. What books were in the smaller libraries? As if they were staying and looking at their books, dude. Constantine shrugged. Unfortunately, not all were as well preserved as this room. Some weather managed to get through damaged windows. Oh, well, yeah, what state they were in. Yeah. The third and highest floor also has damage to the roof, and the books are just a pile of dirt from centuries of exposure to the elements. Scholar Fabian frowned at the news. The first and second floors had books in better conditions, as well as a number of offices. That is where Matteo found that. He pointed at the elven blade. It was mounted on a wall in one of the offices. Delmar looked around. We should move camp to one of the offices in the tower. It will be easier to heat and more defensible from the specters. All eyes turned to Castile, but she had yet to make a final decision. What about the underground complex? Constantine continued. After we climbed the tower, we descended and thought we were headed into the sewers underneath the tower. Okay, I was so close to sneezing, so I was like, I have to stop. Okay. False alarm. RIP. Constantine continued. After we climbed the tower, we descended and thought we were headed into the sewers underneath the tower, as the scholar mentioned, but we encountered a long hallway with a number of storage rooms. We only encountered a single spectre until we reached a large room littered with hundreds of skeletons, all of them elven children. That is from where we drew those specters that were chasing us. Matteo got anxious and struck one with his new blade, even though they were ignoring us. Constantine shook his head. Otherwise, I think the child specters would have continued wandering the room. Oh, fuck you, Matteo. Delmar showed interest in the other rooms. Anything useful in the storage rooms? We did not explore them too thoroughly, but it is unlikely. I suspect they were full of food and other perishable supplies that have long since expired. All eyes turned to Castile. Any sign of vermin? Castile finally asked. Constantine went introspective. I see what you're asking. Rat meat is better than starving, but I suspect the specters keep the city clear of all living things. I saw no signs of rats. He paused before delivering more unwelcome news. We were able to see the city from the third floor of the tower. It is still snowing out there. All one can see is white, Castile. Even the heart tree of the elves is covered. We are trapped. Adrian offered some optimism. We have enough here to burn to keep warm, and just need to melt the snow for fresh water. Delmar dissented. We will run out of food, Adrian. Maybe we can stretch it and make it last a month, but I doubt we're going to find anything in the city that has not spoiled or turned to dust long ago. Our only hope is finding the Scholar's dungeon and hunting them. Hunting there. Agreed. Castile said tersely, before an argument erupted. We will clear the tube library towers of specters and see if they offer any more clues to its whereabouts. From his seat, Scholar Fabian was quick to add. Elven libraries in the Essenham Kingdom have special restricted sections for magical study. Maybe one of the tower libraries is a study of the dungeon itself. It would make sense if the dungeon is indeed inside the city. I feel like we've already decided that, yes, the dungeon will be in the city. There was slight optimism as the leadership group there. Okay, redo that. There was slight optimism at the leadership group separated and began to move our camp to the north end of the library, closer to the towers. A decision was made for Constantine, Adrian, Blaise, and I to go with Castile to secure one of the towers. The scholar would come with us. Brutus, Matteo, Delmar, Flavius, and Pascal would remain with the larger group, protecting them with their runic weapons. There was not much fanfare as we entered the doors on the north end of the library. I somehow ended up at the front with the glowstone in one hand and my black blade in the other. A shield would be useless in this situation, as I could not stop the spectres anyway. The wide corridor had footprints from Constantine and Matteo in a thin layer of dust. The walls were painted with images, but the dust coating them was too thick to make them out clearly. Follow our prints, Constantine said impatiently from the left. There will be a wide stairway to the left and about 50 feet. I walked slowly as the thick layer of dust muffled our footfalls. I paused at the steps Constantine had informed me about. The stone steps were a rich beige stone and looked a lot less dirty. I started to climb the wide circular staircase. The extremely cold air had not reached freezing temperatures inside yet, and our ascent's echoes made me tense as I was a dozen steps ahead of the group. When I reached the first landing, 2 large double doors hung loosely from broken hinges and were covered in dust. Whatever had ripped them out had done so a long time ago. I entered the room beyond, and a spectre was placing a book on a shelf, oblivious to my presence. Castile hissed. It is a poltergeist. Watch out, as it can affect the material plane. Adrian was on my right. Eric, you and me, now. We both advanced on the translucent elven robes. It turned its head in curiosity at us before Constantine's blade stabbed forward from my left and took it in the chest. What happened to Adrian saying Eric, you and me? What happened? Where was Constantine, huh? I don't mind, but damn. Causing a flash of sparks. No. It turned its head in curiosity at us before Constantine's blade stabbed forward from my left and took it in the chest, causing a flash of sparks. It screamed in silence as Adrian hacked it from my right, and I finished it off, bringing my blade down on its head. Constantine chuckled. 3rd time I've killed this one. Hopefully this time it stays dead. Constantine must have rushed forward to attack the spectre. I quickly glanced at his runic blade, which had a luster that I had not noticed before. Constantine confidently sheathed the blade. That was the only one in this floor when we explored. Castile had the kettle out, and the violet death essence was already being sucked into it. Castile was unhappy. Constantine, you did not mention any poltergeists. He looked blankly at Castile. They are advanced forms of specters that can manipulate objects. They're usually only capable of throwing objects and not wielding them like weapons. This one must have been immensely powerful to handle that deteriorating book so gently. Constantine nodded, accepting his failure. I did not know that. There is another one on the 3rd floor. When I struck it down, it was trying to repair the damaged books. I took in the room as Scholar Fabian was itching to get at the shelves. There was only a single transparent stone window, helping our glowstones light the room. The room was surprisingly clean and orderly. The poltergeist must have maintained this room through the centuries. 6 long double-sided shelves dominated the room. Simple but elegant desks lined the walls, with 5 doorways dispersed between them. Those of us with runic weapons walked the small library and searched the doors. Adrian found a spectre in one of the rooms and quickly dispatched it for Castile to consume with urn, much to Constantine's chagrin from claiming there were no more specters on this floor. The fuck's wrong with Constantine? Why is he making so many mistakes all of a sudden? We were allowed a break when the entire floor was secure, and Fabian started to go through the shelves in earnest. I went into one of the offices with a fireplace and a window. The view through the stone was foggy, and I cleaned the inside as best I could. Beyond that, it looked like the snow was slowing, as I could see a good distance and what looked like the shapes of buildings in the city. The massive tree that dominated the city was covered in snow, its massive branches sagging under the weight. Blue lightning flashing in the sky high above as I watched. I heard Castile walking up behind me. Storm elementals, she pointed out to the blue flashes. Looks like the summoner's control over them is waning at the moment. Are we getting out of this? I asked softly. This felt like matcha all over again, trapped in a city. She tapped the kettle of souls in her arms. Yes, with this we stand a chance. Why hasn't someone used that before to clear the city of the undead? There appears to be a lot in this city that can be plundered, I asked. Castile looked out the window with me at the sky. The first kettle of souls was found in a dungeon about 900 years ago, according to scholar Fabian. There was not much use for it until they learned the death essence is crystallized could be used to forge runic weapons and certain potions. The Italian Empire has neither powerful runic smiths nor powerful alchemists to make use of it. Oh, that's so trash. Oh, that's so annoying. Like, we have all of this shit that we know can make amazing things, but no one can do it. RIP. This kettle was sitting in the vault of a count, long forgotten, but Scholar Fabian was aware of its existence. We were lucky the count was willing to part with it for a favor. Favor? A favor? I asked. What favor? That favor is between the Duchess Veronica and Count Lorenzo. At least it's not Castile. He did not know the true value of this artifact. Neither did I. Castile left my side, walked the room, and checked the fireplace and the ornate black wood desk. She searched the drawers and pulled out a small silvery knife that looked like a letter opener. She talked while she searched the rest of the desk. We're going to clear the upper 2 floors. You are to remain here and guard Scholar Fabian while he sorts the books. Castile did not find anything else of interest, so she secured the small knife in her person and left the room. I sat at the desk and ran my hands along it. It was a beautiful black wood desk that had survived centuries, but if the company moved up to these floors, it was going to be smashed and burned in the fireplace. Yeah, just take it into the storage. Take it in, Eric. I know you want it, you like it, you see it, you're like, I'll take it. Just put it in. I sighed and went to the library area. Scholar Fabian was excitedly reading the spines among the shelves. Castile, Adrian, Constantine, and Blaise were departing to head further up the tower. I went and stood next to the scholar. Any luck? Luck, Scholar Fabian said absently. He replaced a book. Unfortunately, Fortuna has not smiled on me yet. These appear to be all advanced reference manuals for professions. A lot of the terminology used within it is beyond my understanding. Interesting. They sound valuable. What professions are here? I asked, trying to make conversation while we waited. Valuable if you can read Elvish. Maybe if they were translated and transcribed, but my grasp of the finer points of the language is lacking. Let me see. He started to walk the shelves looking at the spines. This section here is for weavers. This section over here, he paused to read a title, appears to be for cooking and brewing. He spent some time on the next shelf reading titles before announcing. It appears to be furniture making. It includes everything from cutting the tree to seasoning the wood to various techniques. He had covered most of the sections and came to the last full row. This appears to be the herbalism section and apothecary section. Alchemy. I have learned a little bit from Decimus, I said excitedly. Not alchemy, he shook his head. Just basic herbalism and non-ether-infused brews for an apothecary. I was still interested, and he indicated maybe 300 large tomes on the shelf. Of course, they were all in Elvish. I started paging through the first book on the shelf. It had a lot of artwork to go with the text. Perfect. Pictures. Seeing me enthralled, Scholar Fabian returned to his own task of trying to find clues for the shimmering labyrinth. I was paging through my 5th book when he said, "There might be an alchemy section in a different library, or whether the Mage College is located. It took me 15 years to learn the nuances of the written Elven language." Scholar Fabian started to go into his diatribe about how he became an expert in the Elven language, and I half listened as I focused on slowly turning the pages. If I could not move these books to my dimensional space, I would try adding as many as possible to my dreamscape. It was over 4 hours before the group returned from the upper floors. I had paged through about 1/3 of the books before my eyes started hurting. "How did it go?" I asked the group. Adrian answered tiredly. 7 specters and 4 poltergeists. There is nothing useful on the 3rd floor. Part of the roof collapsed and weathered everything. Ooh. All the books were mush. The 2nd floor just had a crack in the window, but mold got to some of the books. Fabian eagerly stood, ready to explore upstairs, despite his bloodshot eyes. Castile stopped him. "Later, Scholar. I want to get the company settled up here first. What did you find in these books?" Scholar Fabian eagerly told Castile. "It appears to be a catalog for the Elven Master Craftsman. I assume the other smaller libraries are the same, focusing on 5 or 6 professions on each floor. There is invaluable knowledge contained within. The Collegium Scholarium would be extremely excited to get this collection." Castile took in all the books but shook her head. "Getting them all out of here will be too much of a task. What about the Shimmering Labyrinth?" Scholar Fabian had a smile split his face. 3 references so far. Wow! One is very promising. He opened a book he had put aside and started reading. "The rock spider silk spinnerets are viable for 7 hours after harvest. Getting them to the weavers on Dawn's Light Street directly from the labyrinth is best in order to spin them in silk thread immediately." His smile grew. "Dawn's Light Street is in this city." "So the dungeon is within 7 hours of the city," Adrian said unhappily. "It does not mean it is within the walls or accessible by the underground network." Castile gave him a harsh look. It was not like Adrian to voice his pessimism, and it was not the first time he had done so since being trapped in the city. Castile barked. "Adrian and Constantine, with me. We will go and escort the rest of the company up here." As they were leaving, I heard Castile voicing her displeasure at his attitude and how it would affect the rest of the company. Blaze went and sat by a window and looked out at the white expanse, slowly darkening white night. He seemed morose and was normally one of the cheerier men in the company. I was beginning to think this undead city was affecting people. I remembered that last night I did not dream. Maybe it had also been extremely quiet since entering the city and did not want to play checkers. That was not normal. Yeah. Yes. This city was definitely affecting us somehow. Oh, I like this. I like this. I like this. I just don't want anything bad to happen. Anything bad to happen. No one should die. But that's probably gonna happen. Chapter 134. All we need is time. Castile returned with the others over an hour later. 3 specters had stumbled into the large library while we were gone, and the company had been killing them repeatedly as they reconstituted. Why do I have so hard with this word? Reconstituted. Waiting for Castile to return with a kettle of souls. As the company arrived, Adrian used the 5 offices and set them up as small bunk rooms. There were 25 of us if you include Maviet, Castile, and Scholar Fabian. Yeah, and why wouldn't you consider them? I was rooming with Maviet, Constantine, Matteo, Felix, and Scholar Fabian in the largest office. Our job was to protect the scholar while he worked through the books. Every office in the small library had a fireplace, but we were warned only to burn enough to fight off the chill. The firewood was being hauled up from the collapsed shelves of the main library in shifts. As we set up our room, Fabian paged through the single shelf of books in the office. Half of them fell apart at the spine as he flicked through them. I claimed the only desk in the room to sleep on. This desk was made of the same black wood as the other desk, but was much larger. I guess this office belonged to the chief librarian of this tower. Felix scoffed from his position near the fire at me as I set up my bedroll. Wish I had thought of that. This stone floor sucks the heat right out of you. I ignored him. Anything interesting? I asked Scholar Fabian as I sat in the chair at my bed desk and went through the drawers. I ignored him. Amazing. He did not answer as he paged through his most current book and replaced it on the shelf with a huff. No, mostly administrative books. One is a log of books to be copied and loaned out to requested parties. I think they reference elven libraries, but I'm not sure. The book titles listed are interesting anyway. It would really be useful if I had an elf fluent in the language here to help. He did not say more as he lay down exhausted on his own bedroll, near the small fire Felix was starting. I found a lot of paper in the desk that crumbled to dust when I tried to move it. I sifted through the dust and found what looked to be a bag of shiny steel marbles. The bag was brittle and cracked as I took out the 7 marbles. I rolled them in my hand, and they had a good weight to them. They were perfect spheres, maybe ball bearings of some kind, or I thought they might go to some game the elves played, or possibly ammunition for a sling. I left them on my bedroll in front of me as I meticulously searched the rest of the desk. The only other thing of interest was a dozen vials with murky black liquid. They were obviously potions that had not deteriorated over time. The elvish writing on the vials had faded entirely with centuries. The room was filling with light blue smoke as Felix's fire started to get going. It was a more confining space than the massive open library, and the small amount of smoke was building up. "Open the flue!" Constantine barked as he entered the room. He went to the fireplace himself and operated a small stubborn crank. It groaned, and we found it had been a mistake to use it as centuries of dust in the chimney went crashed into the fire. The fire went out, and the room filled with dust. Everything and everyone was coated, and no one looked happy. Scholar Fabian started coughing, angry eyes, tearing as the smoke and dust filled the small space, trained on Constantine. To me, it felt like a natural anger. I started laughing, a loud, boisterous laugh. Damn it, Constantine! I cannot believe that all-knowing legionnaires did not realize there was 1,500 years of dust in there. You're never going to live this one down. That's also, yeah. So, because Constantine also making mistakes. That is also something weird. I was trying to cut the tension, and finally, maybe it coughed hoarsely and started laughing too, taking my lead. Constantine finally joined the laughter, and it was awkward to see him jovial. You are right. I will shake out everyone's gear. We should see if that window opens. He spent some time, but the block of clear stone had no hinges or method to remove it. While Constantine was cleaning the room, we made 2 trips for firewood for the primary library while the dust settled. That night, as we all ate an insignificant dinner, I studied everyone in the company, and it was clear they were depressed. It was hard to tell if it was linked to our circumstances or if the ruins were doing something to them. I was leaning toward the latter. So why aren't Eric affected? That night, I was tempted to use my dreamscape amulet. I asked Mavia to sleep close and remove it if necessary. I also only planned to be inside the dreamscape for 2 4-hour sessions. In the dreamscape, I added 10 of the elven books on the herbalism to my secret shelves. There was as much backlash as I thought I could handle when I left. I was not concerned with practicing with the men in the Ankeg room. Instead, I went to the shelf and pulled off the compendium of spell forms for the displacement affinity. Displacement magic was used to run the massive teleport gates in Telian cities. Displacement mages were highly sought after, and with my 61 affinity, I thought I might be able to imprint a spell form for their ability. I opened it to the index. It was remarkably similar to the time spell form compendium. There were 4 suggested spell forms at 3 different affinity ranges. I was happy to see with my 61 affinity, only 2 of the major spell forms were not available to me. Displacement affinity lesser spell forms. Anchor, Way Step, Way step, like fast teleportation, like small, like blink in WoW. Summon object. Ooh. Ethereal body. Okay. Displacement affinity major spell forms. Blink. Well, I guess way step isn't blink. I guess this is blink. Dimensional door. Ooh. Send object. Okay, so you summon object is lesser, but sending object is major. Interesting. Connect portal gates. Also very nice. Displacement apex major spell form. Major. Displacement apex major spell forms. Teleport other. Very good. Plane shift. Sounds cool. Create portal gate. Also very cool. Greater teleport. Greater teleport. Like far away then. Right? Because I doubt that it's just a big teleport. Oh, maybe he can teleport more than one person at a time or some shit. But I think it's the distance, I would assume. I skipped the spell forms beyond my affinity, so I would not know what I was missing out on. I spent all 4 hours I had allotted figuring out the portal gate spell form. Create portal gate also required anchor and connect portal gate spell form to create the portal gates that the Empire used in the larger cities. There was more to the process as the gates themselves had to be artificed to create a permanent weave to feed ether from ley lines, which was then activated by a displacement mage with the connect portal gates spell form or the actual spell. It allowed me to cross off anchor, connect portal gate, and create portal gate from my list of potential spell forms. Okay, so anchor had to do with the portals, because I was like, what is this? Like he's anchoring himself. With the ability to cast actual spells being so rare, I could see why they had these spell forms in this book for Talian mages. The thing was, I did not see myself spending the rest of my life making portals for the Empire. I exited the dreamscape to the room's chilly air, even with the fire burning. My head was pounding from adding the books, and I could not imagine doing that 29 more times just to get all the herbalism and apothecary books into the dreamscape amulet. I even questioned their value, as I could not read Elvish. I focused on the room around me, stilling my breathing. Maviet was breathing loudly in his sleep, and Matteo was snoring softly. The scholar, I was happy to discern, was also sleeping. He had been too excited by the massive amount of elven knowledge we had encountered. I let my headache fade before returning to the dreamscape. I started to review the simplest of spell forms, Way Step, also referred to as Flash Step. It was a very short-range teleport that was always the same distance in the direction you were facing. The distance was dependent on your affinity for displacement magic. With a 10 affinity, that distance was just under 5 feet, according to the text. I started to do the math to see what my 61 affinity would get me. The answer was about 171 feet. Utterly useless unless I was trying to run away. So maybe not that useless. The good thing about this spell form was you could not materialize inside objects. It shortened the distance until there was space to complete the teleport. And if you did not teleport, your ether was still expended. I looked at the other ether requirements and swore, "Damn it!" Oscar jumped and went on alert at my foul language, barking and looking for the problem. I started laughing at the absurdity of someone invading the dreamscape. Waystep only moved the mage, not their possessions. How was it even remotely useful? Okay, I had misread the text. Yeah, I was like, what? That's funny. The mass of the mage's equipment would add to the base ether cost for Waystep. You could also not take anyone else with you when you flashed forward due to their ether resistance. I did not find this spell form appealing. The summon object spell form did not appear much more useful. I mean, he already has his fucking storage. This spell form brought an object to you. The distance and mass determined the amount of ether. The object had to also be within the mage's line of sight. It was an extremely useful combat ability for disarming foes. The problem was the orientation of the object was fixed, so I would be summoning a sword pointed at me. Oh. I read a little more on the spell form. It was useful in evading arrows, as the arrows were light, and all inertia was halted when an object was summoned. But once again, the ether cost seemed prohibitive to me, as I had better combat spell forms. I moved on to the next spell form, hoping it was a better option for me. It required at least an affinity of 25, so it had to be more useful. Ethereal body allowed the mage to push himself into the astral plane. This meant my afterimage would be immune to damage. Well, runic weapons and etheric magic spells could hit creatures in the astral plane. We were doing that with the specters, so this was not an invulnerability spell. The blink spell form was a more advanced form of the wave-step spell form. This spell form functions the same way but lets you control the distance you travel. It only required a 30 affinity to learn, so I moved on to the next spell form, Dimensional Door. Dimensional Door was a very impressive spell form that required 2 castings. The first casting was the anchor, used on any doorway. The second casting was also cast in a doorway and connected to the first. As long as the mage sustained the connection, people could pass through from one doorway to the other. There was no restriction on distance. However, once the mage dropped the connection, both anchors faded and would need to be reset. The limiting factor for me came down to the distance the doors were apart, which determined how much ether would be required per second to hold the passage open. I did not have a large ether pool. Send Object could teleport any non-living object to a place with which the mage was familiar. The mass and distance determined how much ether was required. I could not even cast the higher affinity spells once, so Teleport Other, Plane Shift, and Greater Teleport were off the table for me. I was having enough trouble on this plane of existence anyway. Not being able to learn Greater Teleport was a disappointment. This spell allowed you to send your mind to a location and pull your body there. The cost in ether was immense though. Maybe there were more spell forms options out there. If these were my only choices, then it would either have to be Blink or Dimensional Door. I started thinking maybe Dimensional Door would be a good way to escape a terrible situation. I certainly wish I had it at this moment. When I returned from the dreamscape, my back ached from the hard surface. I wished I had pulled out my pillow. The grey morning light shone through the window, and Constantine was sitting there looking out. It was just the 2 of us awake. He slowly turned to me and said, "The snow has stopped, but I do not think we are done with the elementals." "Why? What is going on out there?" I asked, moving to the window, almost tripping over Mavieth. I reached the window, and the blue flashes in the sky were still there, but Constantine was right. The sky was clear, and just an ocean of white was out there. They are dropping the temperature. I have been scraping frost off this window for the last 2 hours. "We were not planning to go outside anyway," I responded while noticing a huge amount of snow drop from the massive heart tree in the distance. A giant eagle took flight and circled into the sky. It quickly returned to the tree, not daring to approach the elemental lightning. "Those eagles are going to freeze to death," Constantine nodded out the window. "They might be our best chance of food if we can get to them." Oh. "Breakfast!" came a call from the central room. The entire small library instantly came alive as men felt the start of the hunger pains. I went with Constantine to find a thick soup for breakfast. Lurkin smiled. "Mashed up the stale bread and used a little extra jerky this morning in the soup. Don't tell Delmar." His request was moot as Delmar was behind him and just rolled his eyes. I guess that Delmar had told him to use what he did this morning. The starchy soup had pea-sized pieces of rehydrated jerky in it, but Lurkin made sure to scoop from the bottom for everyone so they get the sediment. My protesting stomach thought it was one of the best things I had ever eaten. The air felt colder, but the 5 side rooms all had small fires, making the central room bearable. Delmar spoke after everyone arrived. "We are all going to remove our armor. Armor is not much use against the specters anyway, and it should help you bundle your cloaks tighter to your body. If you have spare clothes, layer them. Castile is going to lead an expedition to the other tower this morning. Matteo, Blaze, Brutus, and I will thin out the specters there with Castile." No, not Eric. After Castile left, my job was to guard the men who were gathering firewood from the shelves in the primary library to haul up to our rooms. Adrian was supervising, making the floor of the tower we now occupied more hospitable. He had groups taking what they could from the upper floors. I think most of us realized it was busy work to keep our minds off our situation. I was on my 5th trip with firewood when Castile's group joined us, climbing the stairs. Maybe it was carrying a large bundle of wood and was not afraid to ask. What did you find in the other tower? Delmar answered for Castile. Half a dozen specters. The roof completely collapsed, and there was nothing to salvage on any of the floors. All the books have long since been destroyed by weathering. Castile said steely, We will start thinning out the specters under the city. It will take time, but as long as we have the kettle, we can clear them all. As we climbed, she reassured everyone around her. Scholar Fabian will find out where the dungeon is located soon, and we can seek refuge there. Okay, I was like, I have one more chapter, right? And we do. Chapter 135. Shared Dreaming. We all started to get accustomed to the persistent cold as it became the new normal. We sealed the doors to the small library as best we could to keep in the heat and keep the 5 fires going in the offices. Part of my assigned duties was to watch over Scholar Fabian as he paged through the hundreds of books. I also finished going through the entire herbalism and apothecary section. Each night I added another 10 books to my Dreamscape collection, and I was getting better at handling the migraines upon exiting. Perhaps I was building a tolerance. They were fading much quicker, at least. I also made trips with Mavieth to the floors above to search for viable books in the mess above for Fabian to look at. The 3rd floor still had its doors intact, but a rafter in the roof had fallen and created a small crack in the stone roof, exposing a portion of the room to the elements. The room was half filled with a dusting of snow. No tomes remained other than some tarnished silver book bindings. We stacked those dozens of black and silver plates together. If we escaped the city, maybe we would pack them out, or they might find their way into my storage. The 2nd floor held more promise. The shelves had collapsed, and one of the quartz windows had buckled, leaving a wide crack. It gave me access to see how cold it really was outside. Sticking my hand through the crack, I found it colder than anything I had ever experienced before in this life or my last, and my hand was prickled with needles of pain immediately from the cold. Maybe it commented after replicating my act. We would not last an hour outside. The summoner does not need to send any creatures after us to finish us off. I tried to cheer up the morose Goliath. The summoner cannot hold back spring. I handed him a ration bar from my storage. Eat this, Mavieth. You are looking a little thin. The truth was all of us were thinning rapidly after just 4 days in the city on the forced diet. Mavieth more so, even though he was getting twice as much as everyone else at meals. He looked at the bar uncertainly. I have a few more in my storage. Eat it. It is fine. You just do not tell anyone. His hand slowly extended to take it, his hunger winning out. Mavieth had trouble with lying, but I thought he would keep this secret. He snapped it in half and tried to hand me the other half. So far, I had been suffering with the others, not eating from my dimensional space. It had been difficult to overcome the urges, and I knew if I started, I would not stop. Looking at the bar, my mouth watered. No, Mavieth, it is all for you. I turned my back on him, resisting the temptation, and continued searching the 2nd floor. Crazy. As I dug through the debris, I heard him slowly crunching away guiltily on the ration bar. Oh. These upper floors held no offices to search. They only held shelving. Oh shit, it creeped up on me. Whoa! I was so not ready to yawn. My god. Where was I? Dug debris, ration bar. Shelving. We dug through the mess and stacked books to be brought downstairs for Scholar Fabian to review. According to the scholar, the 2nd floor appeared to focus on all types of metal smithing, from household goods to armor and weapons. There were lots of techniques with instructions and images by elven master smiths within the pages. Of course, it was all in Elvish and useless in our current circumstances. No one in the company was foolish enough to think these books would not be worth thousands of gold if recovered. The problem was recovering them. After I had paged through the herbalist and apothecary collection, I started helping Scholar Fabian sort the books. He had resumed teaching me the Elven language. It was a lot easier to speak the language than it was to read it. This was made doubly so by the fatigue from slowly starving my body. My mind did not want to focus for more than a few minutes at a time. I found myself staring blankly at nothing. I had no idea how the scholar kept going so strong hour after hour, but I guess his thirst for knowledge outweighed his hunger pains and mental fatigue. I did make progress in the Elven language, though I was cheating. I spent 4 hours in the Dreamscape amulet every evening, working on reading, writing, and speaking the Elven tongue. So far, no one had requested to use the artifact. I was most surprised that Matteo had not made another request. During my nights, I added 10 books and then tried to sort the ones I had as I worked on my steady mastery of the language. Having a copy of Scholar Fabian with me in the Dreamscape made the process even easier. Creating a copy of him allowed the amulet to draw on the short daily lessons he taught me during the day, making progress faster with each day that passed. Learning inside the amulet was also much more effective than in the real world. I found that recall for knowledge was much clearer from studying the books, and my muscle memory from weapon practice was much more sharper and more efficient, helping to reduce wasted movement during sparring practice in and out of the Dreamscape. My best guess was the amulet focused all my efforts on learning the current task. I could see why these amulets were so valued if using them allowed me to progress so much faster than without one. Scholar Fabian thought that with my rapid improvement, I should become a master linguist rather than a soldier. The funny part of all this was I could not speak Tsinga, my alleged native language. None of the books had given me insights into that language, though. On the 5th morning in the tower, I noticed that only Constantine and I seemed well rested when I woke up. Everyone else was lethargic and took more time to wake up and get active. I used the amulet, and Constantine had a spell form to shorten the rest he needed. I planned to tell Castile my suspicions and observations. I spent that night cleaning up the space in the amulet after I added more books and some language practice. I moved everyone and everything to the Scorpion room, walled it off, and resetted all the monster rooms. I felt some guilt locking Oscar with his constructs, so I altered their disposition to play with him. Aww. I was never part of Castile's small group that went every morning to the underground complex to kill specters. I did hear stories of how they would spend time trying to attract the attention of only a few at a time. Then they would lure them back toward our tower and slay them with runic weapons, and Castile would use the Kettle of Souls to end them permanently. When they returned this evening, the group was missing a person. No! I could read the faces of everyone. Someone had died. Okay, wait. Who is in the group? It doesn't say here, and I don't remember. I just remember that it's Castile, Constantine, Delmar, right? Felix? Question mark? Or maybe Matteo, or maybe... Oh... Brutus is not with them, I think. I don't think Firth is with them either. Adrian is not, because Adrian's staying. Oh, shit. Okay. Okay, we will continue. I need to find out. Oh my god. I could read the face of everyone. Someone had died. I tried to recall who went with them this morning. Oh, literally me! Constantine stood in the doorway. He's safe. His face blank. Castile went into the room where she slept and closed the door. Oh, okay. Delmar gathered everyone around. Okay, so Delmar is also safe. Men, come close. I do not want to repeat myself. His voice was heavy. Oh my god. Delmar's face was thin, and his eyes were sunken and dark. He waited as a group was coming back from gathering wood. With everyone present, we listened to him. We encountered a white. What the fuck is a white? Wigged? White. A lot of confused looks had him explained. It is a powerful type of undead. We were surprised, and it got Lysander. I don't remember Lysander. Who the fuck is Lysander? I remember the name. I think. But I do remember the name, but I don't remember him ever doing anything. Like, I feel like he was in the beginning. Wait, no. Lysander isn't the horse guy, right? Who exactly? Is Lysander the horseman? Random Soldier 16. Well, at least it wasn't like someone, that we hold dearer. But I think Lysander is the horse guy. Right? I think so. But why would he go with them? Like, that sounds so weird. I'm probably wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Okay. We will see, probably. Maybe. Castile was able to restrain it subsequently. But Lysander is dead. Rip Lysander, regardless. There was a quiet shock. Lysander was one of the youngest men in the company. Oi. Not even 21, if I recall correctly. Oh no. He was also a terrible cook. That was the one! He was the one that had to cook once. Because he complained about the food. Oh shit. He at least had a scene once. But no one made a joke about it now. Firth asked the most pertinent question. Are there more of them? The whites? Constantine answered. More than likely. We entered a different part of the underground complex. It was a barracks of refuge for important citizens. I had a slew of specters and poltergeists. We had drawn out 5 of them and the white as well. Lysander was paralyzed as it stabbed him and then bit into his neck, ripping out his throat before he could give aid. Wow. Constantine handed Brutus the sword I had loaned him at the beginning of this mess, as he lent it to Lysander this morning. Constantine walked into the room. We cannot become complacent. This undead city most likely has more surprises. He placed a new elven short blade on the table Sculptor Fabian worked at, its thin blade about a yard in length, which grew wider toward the end with only a slight curve. The white had a runic weapon that will help our cause. Lysander fought well. Remember him well. No promises. Delmar broke into Constantine's speech with a flat tone. There is some more good news. What was the good news? Oh, the weapon. I'm like, that's not good news. What do you mean? We found a storeroom full of elven wine. Hey. If it is not vinegar, we will have it with our meals. Even the promise of alcohol did not break the somber faces. 21 legionnaires were left, not including Maviat the scholar and Castile. Delmar gave Larkin 2 bottles from his pack and went to join Castile. Adrian followed him but had not been part of this expedition to the underground complex. I knocked on the door shortly after it had closed. Castile's sharp voice answered, Enter! I walked in, and the 3 of them looked at me expectantly. I told them my thoughts. I think everyone is being prevented from dreaming and recovering mentally when they sleep. Delmar responded hotly. Everyone is sleeping just fine, Eric. Castile held up her hand to stop Delmar. Yeah, shut up, Delmar. Damn. Explain, Legionnaire. And that Adrian is having such a sour mood, and Castile is like, stop. Don't do that. I gathered my thoughts. I have noticed everyone is more lethargic, irritable, and quick to anger with shortened tempers. I have had to calm more than a few men down. I have been using my Dreamscape amulet nightly, and Constantine has a spell form to help him sleep and recover more quickly. We appear to be the only 2 acting normal. Delmar harumphed and said dismissively, Normal. We're eating a quarter of what we should be eating. Most of the men are making a new notch in their belt every day. Adrian finally said something. I agree with Eric. We have been in more dire situations before. The men seem to have given up too quickly and easily. Castile nodded as well. I think Eric is right too. We should confirm it by having others use the amulet. No! She looked me in the eye. With your permission? That's why he removed everything. I had known this was going to be the outcome. I think it is necessary. 2 people can enter at once, perhaps more. I have never attempted it. They just both need to be touching the amulet. Castile nodded slowly. Tonight then. I will use it with you here. And Adrian and Lamar can stay and watch. Yes! I left the room feeling slightly awkward, but I knew that it was the right thing to do and had to be done. Maybe the men were being blocked from just getting a deep sleep, but I felt there was more. Maybe there was some type of slow festering corruption of curse surrounding the city. A few hours later, I was on the floor, in front of the fire, with Castile on the bedrolls. Ah! The plan was to stay in the dreamscape for 6 hours and see if it was effective for Castile. I suspected it would be. Delmar was currently on watch in the outer room. I will channel Ether and enter first, I told Castile, who nodded. Adrian was seated, watching intently as my consciousness left to enter the dreamscape. I was in the entry room of the dungeon. Castile appeared a moment later. She turned around slowly. The dungeon? I nodded. The others using it to figure out where you got the amulet if this is the space you created. Well, yeah. I didn't create it. It was like this the first time I entered, and I can't change it, I said, while creating a table and chairs and taking a seat, offering a seat to Castile with an extended hand. Castile stepped back, surprised, before relaxing. She sat opposite me. How does it work? I just think what I want, and it creates it. Don't think of something weird. I explained while filling the table with a Thanksgiving feast. I know it is not going to give your body any sustenance, but it still tastes good. Castile took the mashed potatoes and cranberry relish. She tried the relish first and spit it out. Sour! I laughed. It is tart, not sour. It has sugar, but you need to get past the tartness. Give it a chance, I said, and she tried it again and nodded slowly. What is it? She asked, trying the mashed potatoes, which were much more to her liking. Cranberries from the south, I replied. I watched her as she ate. She tried a little of everything before stopping. You are right. I think the cursed souls in the city are affecting us, because there are so many specters. They are creating an aura. Castile moved the food around on her plate, not making eye contact. I questioned Castile. But you have made progress in the underground complex. The more specters you kill, the less the evil aura. Castile could not hide a pained look. It is much larger than we thought. There are 2 levels and even a sewer system underneath those levels. Constantine thinks it was built by their earth mages to hide the citizens when the Legion attacked the city. The Legion never entered the city, instead filling it with a powerful and deadly gas that seeped into the underground city complex. The elves were not prepared for it. So you have made no progress? I asked, confused. We kill more than 100 specters and poltergeists a day. That is progress, I would say. To me, that sounds like progress. We learned the undead are not tied to their body, but to the city itself. It means they can all wander anywhere in the city. And now that we encountered a whites are powerful undead, and there could be wraiths, or maybe even banshees, Castile admitted. Was the wraith we encountered heading to Sobral from these elven ruins? I said, remembering that terrible night. Castile recalled the encounter. It was definitely an elf in a past life, but it was more interested in Constantine's runic weapon. Some undead have connections to certain objects from their past life. She trailed off, not talking further about it, and focused on eating. After she had stuffed her face for a time, I offered with an uncomfortable smile. Do you want to fight any monsters? We walked into the Ankig chamber, but did not fight them. Instead, Castile practiced manifesting objects and creatures. She was able to do it, successfully creating gnolls, but it took much more of an effort for her than for me. She was the second person to enter the dreamscape, so I think it was harder for her to make changes, and I voiced my opinion. Castile offered a guess. I know at the Mage College, only 2 people use them at a time. My speculations is any more would overload the amulet. The first person in the Dreamscape amulet also has primary control of the environment. Even though I tried to stop you, you could make the gnolls I created disappear. Dude, he has the Minecraft server. I was happy to finally be learning more about how the amulet functioned. I had another question that I wanted answered. Could I get others to create books here with their knowledge? And would those books remain after they exited the dreamscape? I smiled encouragingly at Castile. You can create books that you have read before. Try it. Castile arched an eyebrow at my sudden eagerness but focused, and a thick tome appeared in her hand. It was a spell book. She slowly opened it up, and her eyes got wider and wider as she rapidly paged through it. It is the complete book! I read this a long time ago at the Mage College. I learned shadow chains from it. She was in disbelief. It looks the same. Even the page where I left the drink to hold it up open has the watermark. Castile's thoughts were spinning. What are you thinking? What? I asked her. There were dozens of spell books I looked at. There were spells I could not learn at the time that were too complex. I thought I would never have the opportunity to. Castile said excitedly as she continued paging through the book. This is my amulet. I created a shelf in the entry room for her, and she studied for the last few hours while I practiced fighting her manifestations of gnolls. When we exited the dreamscape, Castile moaned in pain and held her head, sitting up too quickly. She rolled over and dry heaved a few times. I should have warned you, Castile. The more things you create in there for the first time, the more it taxes your mind. How many books did you recreate? Castile continued to dry heave for a minute. Adrian was handing her a canteen of water. She laughed harshly. Almost all of them. 30, maybe 31. Every spellbook I read at the Mage College. She took the canteen and pushed Adrian back. I'm fine. Just some nausea and a headache. Adrian gave me a harsh look as he helped Castile stand. Castile wobbled on her feet, suffering from a bout of vertigo, and it reminded me of the first time I had overextended myself in the dreamscape. I do not think we will find out if it protected you from the undead city's aura, I said while returning the amulet to my storage. Castile regained herself. No, it did. Even with the after effects, I can tell. My other core is easier to access, and my thoughts are clearer. Adrian looked a little skeptical. Are you sure? You look much worse than before you used it. Adrian doesn't like Castile and Eric spending a little bit of time together. Adrian, I am sure, Castile said firmly. Do we have the whole company use it then? Delmar asked from the doorway, clearly agitated. Castile looked at me and nodded. Well, I will go now then. Delmar moved and lay down next to me. I felt slightly uncomfortable, but produced the amulet and entered the dreamscape. Oh, this will be fun. The last book Castile had been reading was still there. She must have made the others disappear rather than put them on the shelf I made for her. I tried to manifest the books she had created, but none appeared. That was disappointing. The 3 gnolls she had created were still here. I made one of them vanish and made it reappear a minute later. So if she left creations behind, I could control them. I was thinking about this when I finally wondered where Delmar was. I waited a few more minutes before exiting the dreamscape. The 3 of them watched me as I got off the ground. It did not work, Castile said. What did not work? I asked, confused. You have to be able to send your own ether into the amulet to activate it. My ether did not work for Delmar, she clarified. I let out a chuckle, and Delmar's face contorted into masked fury. He was ready to throttle me. I was chuckling that I had not lied to Mateo, not Delmar's inability to manipulate ether. Delmar did not see it that way. He thought I was laughing at him. He did not give me a chance to explain. An irate Delmar ordered me out. Go back to your quarters, Eric. I left the 3 of them as they started to discuss what we had learned and to plan a course of action. That's so funny. Like, he's already angry and then oh, but that's good. It's very, very good for us. Very good. Okay, well, then maybe because there are other people like Constantine, but he doesn't need it because he already has his. I only need to sleep 5 or 4 hours and then I'm fine. But Firth, he could, right? Cause it is Firth, right? That Eric did the the dueling with, and we were like, he's definitely using some type of strengthening minor spell or some shit, like drugs. So he was a little bit faster and a little bit better. Yeah, only people with access to the magic course can go in. So, because obviously Loreen did, and she has that she can dry anything, which is so cute. But fuck Loreen, go to hell. But yeah, it's very good for us to know, because then not anyone can just enter. So it takes down the probability of someone doing it by a lot. Which is good, very good. I'm excited to see what will happen next time. Highly excited, very excited. Oh. Stretching. Oh, okay. Well, that was it for the reading today. Very nice. Ooh. Good stuff as always. Soon I'm gonna have to contact Mr. Always Rolls a 1. So now Eric will sleep with Castile every night, purely out of necessity. No other reasons. No. None whatsoever. Yeah, I doubt that they would have to do it every night to get rid of the whole depression thingy. But I mean, she would definitely want to, because she seemed extremely happy to do so. I'm like, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't want to be awake when you could be like, instead of being asleep? You can do stuff. Maybe it will go next. If only he could do some spells. He can. He can. Oh yes, definitely. Adrian is definitely jealous. What can babies do? What? Oh, right. Right. Yeah, maybe it can go. I completely forgot that. Right, he can like build a house with some earth. Oh god. Oh. I'm considering what to do next. That's why I'm kind of like right now. I'm thinking about how much my voice could do. I'm considering basically if, because I was considering coloring earlier. That's what I said, right? But then I'm like, is my voice good enough still to play Valhalla today? Or not? That's what's always so annoying, that I read for 2 hours and it takes a greater toll than what it sounds like. Is there stream tomorrow? There should be. If nothing else happens, it should be. I was also like, maybe I should just do Valhalla tomorrow, because I missed the game. I really want to do it. But then I wouldn't read. So Which I obviously can't skip. I mean, I read every time. Because then I was like, then I could do some coloring today and then you do some Valhalla tomorrow, maybe? Possibly. I'll save my notes first of all. Save. Yeah. Why is it always so hard? Why is it always so hard to decide things? Final smilers enters. Do this! Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. And I did think of it, so I shouldn't be so hippity hoppy switching over and stuff. Yeah, I will do that because I don't know if I can do it. No. I love that you were like, but you will read tomorrow. You will read every time. Yeah, I will do it. I've already done preparations to color anyway, so we'll just sit back, color, and chill. That's what we will do. But because I will play some music, I will restart the stream for VOD reasons, so you can watch this at your leisure. Always reading. So just quick restart of the stream. You only need to refresh. And that's it. And then back we shall be. Is there a clip? Studio? No. I guess it's art then. Is it art? It's art. Okay. Just quick refresh of the stream. And then there will be some coloring happening instead. Yeah. So thank you for watching the VOD. Thank you for coming to the stream if you stop now. Feel free to follow me on my socials and stuff. And join the Discord. And just refresh the stream. And I will be back. Not YouTube stream though. Only Twitch. Haha. Okay, so just refresh. Be right back. See you in a second.